Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to another edition of Gigabits and Gigahertz, a blog about telecom technology, 5G, fixed wireless, fiber internet, broadband, and everything else. And today with me, I have the pleasure of having as a guest Mr. David Theodore, CEO and founder of Resilient Internet. David, good afternoon. How you doing?
Wonderful, Gino. Thanks for having me on.
No, thank you for accepting our invite. I'm pretty excited to have you here as a guest and also to discuss a lot of interesting topics that I think you will bring to this vlog and for our audience. So before we start, I would like to just say hi to everyone that's connecting to the vlog, and thank you for your support. We're uploading the vlog in YouTube, so I will share later the YouTube channel. Maybe next week, because tomorrow marks the 30th day that I added or joined YouTube with the blog title, and I need to wait 30 days to get my custom URL. So tomorrow we'll have that and share in the next vlog. So thank you for all the support. And yeah, let's start with you, David. So for all the people that do not know you, let us know who you are, where you came from, and what you're doing now.
Well, I don't want to spend too much time on my background because I think the future is a lot more important. But I mean, we had an interesting exchange when before we started about who's the world's first WISP, and so just to give you a little bit of background, in 1987, the company that I founded came out with the world's first wireless Ethernet solution, and it was a 10 megabit transmission. It was full 802.3 100% Ethernet, and it matched the backbone of the network at that time.
Okay.
And so for all intents and purposes, microwave was as good as fiber, actually better, because you could get it right away. Well, you'd have to wait for the license period, but
right.
You could get it quickly. Assuming that you were within the right distance, you could get as much throughput as you needed. Fiber couldn't give you any more throughput since the network topped out at 10 megs anyway. And of course, there wasn't much fiber in the ground at that time.
Wow, this is 1987?
1987.
Wow, 33 years ago.
Well, who's counting?
I'm counting it.
Were you even born?
Yes, I was, obviously. But I still was playing with toys at that time.
Well, so what happened was when we came out with the technology in Boston and Cambridge, actually, not Silicon Valley, we had MIT, Harvard, and Boston University that wanted to get internet access. And they heard about my technology. I proved it out to them. And then we built a triangle between the three universities, all fixed wireless. And they applied to DARPA for a grant, and they got money to create the regional internet for the greater Boston area. And it was all fixed wireless. We had 60 major members, like all major universities, hospitals, corporations. And for the record, our first home internet customer was Bill Joy, the co-founder of Sun Microsystems.
Wow, A-lister.
I'm sorry?
An A-lister in the in the technology industry.
Well, back then pretty much everyone was, because it's funny, Aberdeen Group had us with like 75 or 80% worldwide market share. But at the time there were between 300 and 1,200 websites. So,
right.
It was a really small world. So, so flash forward.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Well, so the point is, I mean, I love this industry. I love fixed wireless. Unfortunately, I don't think, the business is really taken off to the extent that it could. But, I latched on to climate resiliency a few years ago, going to conferences and hearing about billions and billions of dollars that are just flying all around the world for resiliency. Climate readiness, that term is important. Mm-hmm. Climate readiness is moving billions of dollars of investment money. BlackRock is making a really big point of that, and it's affecting bond ratings. And even industries like life sciences are being rated by their climate readiness. And meanwhile, in all the talk of, tens of billions, hundreds of billions, and shoring up infrastructure and all of that, I never heard anyone talk about protecting data. I never heard anyone talk about internet resilience and internet vulnerability.
Right.
And that's crazy because data runs the world now. So what do you have if you don't have the internet? You don't have access to the cloud. You don't have anything.
The arteries of any business nowadays.
Absolutely, absolutely. So where there's some interesting stuff about this, and we really want everybody on the bandwagon. I mean, this I think is for the entire industry because it's a multi-billion-dollar opportunity. And I just kind of lost my. I wanted to say, my main line on this thing is that we have to understand and we have to be bold enough to push the premise that fiber is the single point of failure in extreme weather.
Definitely.
If we get business leaders and policymakers to understand that, again, it's a multi-billion-dollar opportunity because then they understand that not only are they vulnerable, but that there's a solution.
Yes, definitely. I can agree and attest to that because obviously our WISP is based in Puerto Rico, and we went through the Hurricane Maria 3 years ago, almost now, and fiber was all over the place. It was destroyed. A lot of fiber plant needed to be rebuilt because of a hurricane effect to the fiber plant. Most of it was either buried or aerial laid, and the hurricane just passed by and flew all the poles, and the fiber was on the floor. Yeah. And it took months, I can say maybe even years, to rebuild that fiber plant. So
that's a huge point, Gino, because that's another thing a lot of people don't think about. They're thinking about the eye of the storm, and a few people have said, yeah, but don't you lose some bandwidth during the storm? And it's like, well, yeah, you might lose a little bit of bandwidth during the storm, but you're going to be 100% up and running as soon as the storm cell passes. And as you say, fiber could be down for weeks, maybe months or more.
Yeah, and based on our experience, a lot of companies had what they thought was redundancy because they had like maybe two providers, both with fiber, and they thought they having redundancy on the server. But what little did they know was that both fibers were running through the same path. And the hurricane or a car accident or something, if the both fibers are on the same path, you lost your redundancy, and you lost your business.
Yeah, totally. I think this is one of the most important discussions we can have in our industry because, for decades I tried to sell wireless backup, and it's a losing proposition. It's a terrible business. You'd go in and you talk to these high-profile clients, and they have these massive networks, and they listen to you, and it seems compelling. But then they tell you, they have multiple fiber providers, multiple routes, self-healing fiber. They have multiple data centers, and they're all set. And that might have been the case. Maybe
the best example we can put forward now, and sorry for interrupting, but it just came up to my mind, is this week's T-Mobile.
Oh my God, yeah.
Problem where they had two fibers and both were not working.
It's stunning to think of
millions of customers affected because of this.
It's stunning. It's stunning. It's interesting because I posted on that on LinkedIn, I think today or yesterday, and it really created a firestorm with some fiber people on there getting all offended by what I was saying. And, it's like, to me, it's like a car manufacturer being offended about seatbelts or a cruise being offended by lifeboats. I mean, this is new best practice. And if you're going to go in and tell clients you don't need to have aerial backup if they're in a floodplain or in a vulnerable area, that's professional malpractice. I mean, forget about it. That's terrible.
Exactly. So this is an interesting proposition. So what's climate resilient internet all about?
Well, what we're trying to do is we're trying to, or I should say we are creating a branded, certified climate resilient internet service for everybody in the industry, for radio manufacturers, for providers, for everyone. And the idea of the certification isn't just like, oh, well, this is about a company making money. But the idea of the certification is that it fixes one of the big problems that we've had in our industry, which is a lack of standards. I mean, for instance, in the networking world, you can be Cisco certified and it really means something.
Yep.
And decades ago, when you worked with microwave radio, you were FCC licensed and you had to pass tests. Well, today, there are a lot of great providers out there doing wonderful work. And when fixed wireless is done well, you're talking about equipment that lasts decades, and you hardly ever have to see it. I was just talking to a friend on the phone the other day, and he was talking to me about radios that are 20 years old that are still in service.
Definitely.
But the problem is that that while most radios are the same, installation practices vary everywhere. And you have companies that cut corners. You have companies that are proud of what they do. You have companies that know a lot about licensed microwave. You have companies that don't. But the worst thing is that our business became commoditized and everybody's looking for lowest price. This goes to show that customers don't know. They don't understand. You don't want lowest price with this. You want best installation and best quality.
Definitely.
So to come out with a certified standard that applies more for the installation than really the mechanical hardware. But to come out with a certification means that we can say to clients that we have a standard. It's this high standard based on new specifications for climate resilience. And everybody who offers that service will be selling a premium service. It's not going to be about price competition. And we don't even have to make it about price competition, because I think that if our message really hits, and if enough people in our industry gets behind it, we have a market opportunity too big for the 2,000 companies that are in it right now. I mean, if you had every major, every critical infrastructure, all the critical infrastructure in Miami, I mean, forget about it. So, it's a huge opportunity. So again, going back to the whole certified thing, we want to have everybody in this business. We're putting out a PR blitz to the general public next week to start the discussion about internet vulnerability, and to start to bring business in on that basis. Because, the internet doesn't need to go down like the way it does.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And in the age, in the information age, to see people on top of their houses with signs like looking for help seems crazy. We know we can do better. But the problem is that if it's not certified climate resilient, then we're back to the old business of wireless backup. And that business sucks and it's never going to go anywhere. So I think that, to the extent I'm able to explain this well enough to our industry, I think we can all get behind it.
Yeah, I think I got it. And I would like to tell our audience, if anyone has any questions, they could just post it on the streams and we will see it and answer it on the fly. So anyone can call questions. So if I get the idea correct, David, climate resilient internet will bring some sort of certification towards the service as a whole.
Right, like a UL certification, right?
Okay.
We don't have anything like that in the fixed wireless business, which is why we all are pitted against each other, for lowest price. And, I think, though, with the message that we have, we are connecting fixed wireless to the most relevant conversation on the planet, And I think I mentioned this to you in one of our prior conversations, but it's interesting. But when I was selling fixed wireless the traditional way, I'm stuck dealing in the IT suite with IT managers all the time. These are my only conversations. These are the only people that hear me. But now, climate resilient internet, I got to see half the executive cabinet at the mayor of Boston's office. I got to go in and talk to the staff at, I want to say the Secretary of State. It's not for the state of Massachusetts. the Speaker of the House,
Okay.
because major politicians and major business leaders are all, they're all aware of the coming impact of extreme weather, and they're, they're getting ready for it, and there's a lot of money moving around for it.
Yeah, and this applies to the whole world, because the climate is changing all around. It's not just for the coastal areas.
Oh,
It applies
absolutely.
for
Absolutely. It's for California, where they have wildfires. When they were having those fires and power was going out, hospitals were closing. They had no access to data. If you don't have access to data, you can't get patient records from the cloud.
Yeah.
You're not a hospital anymore. So this is what I'm talking about this being an explosive market opportunity. I spent 3 years in Boston just kind of researching this and talking to people. And I believe that if great WISPs take this back to their markets, that they can go to they could start at floodplains, or they could start hazard zones, wherever, but
Right.
go to the most critical sites, hospitals, universities, hotels where they shelter people in place, critical infrastructure for cities and states. They all need this.
It just occurred to me. I read today that President Trump was to announce a $1 trillion package that included some part of it for 5G.
Yeah.
Do you think that climate resilient technology could take advantage of such a stimulus?
Well, I'm certain that it can. For instance, part of what I did in Massachusetts was to talk to people at the state level who have $2 billion of grant money that are for climate resilience. And that grant money is going for communities who are providing proposals for shoring up vulnerable parts of their community. But interestingly, none of that is for data, telecom, or communications, even though the first thing you lose in a major storm is communications, the thing you need the most.
Exactly.
Anyway, what was that, Gino? Take me back.
Yeah, I think the government should see it as a priority to make the internet resilient all over the country. The country runs on the internet, basically. So I see it as they need to make an effort to include this type of efforts or technologies into their whole broadband plan.
Well, absolutely. But of course, the government doesn't understand this. Most people don't understand what we're trying to do or what we're capable of doing. But if you just take the Boston area, for instance, a big part of the city is in a floodplain. There's dozens of hospitals that are in there, dozens of major finance companies, major corporations. They're all going to lose data. They may lose data for hours, days, or weeks, and meanwhile, we can get them to an internet data center that's off a floodplain, that's on dry ground, that's rated against hurricanes and critical events like that. And once they get there, they have their choice of carriers, and they're home free.
I think that partnering, or at least getting the foot on the door with the data centers, will be a nice idea to get this rolling, because they will see the value of having some sort of resilient service within their infrastructure.
I think you're right, but maybe not data centers so much as cloud providers. Like, for instance, Google and Microsoft don't know this yet, and Amazon don't know this yet, but they're going to find out when we put out our PR, and we're going to be hammering away at it, that yes, moving your data to the cloud makes it more secure. However, it makes it less resilient to climate. So they're going to have to do something for their critical accounts. I think the point is that we need to get this message out, and then the clock is ticking. Because right now, what we do when we have an internet outage is we act like the power went out. Like, oh, okay, it's party time. Let's go to the liquor store. Work is over. What can we do? Verizon's down. AT&T's down, right?
Yeah.
But data now has surpassed oil as the world's most valuable resource. And so can we really afford to say that? And now if we're going to have more and more extreme weather events, Are we just going to keep like closing things down, or are we going to adapt? I mean, that's the whole thing.
Yeah, it is. What do you think about the current state of the fixed wireless industry as a whole?
Um, you know, I don't. The current state of it, I think that our industry is very small. I keep reading that we're going to have exponential growth over the next 5 years, but I also read that we're something like a $400 million industry. So I think the paperclip industry is probably much bigger than us. Nail polish probably is like 1,000 times bigger business than fixed wireless. And, but it doesn't need to be like that. I think the fixed wireless industry has always been tough because we're all David and Goliaths. We get whatever we're allowed to get. We get whatever scraps the big carriers leave, But I think climate resiliency gives us an opportunity to step up to the plate. We can partner with carriers. Carriers don't want to be in the fixed wireless business, but we can help protect their most critical connections so that when they do have a wide scale event, it will help turn the heat down on them because they know that the major hospitals taken care of, the police and fire stations, that kind of stuff.
I kind of agree, but I have to say that there's a lot of let's say excitement, for lack of a better word, about fixed wireless within certain areas of the telecom sector because of the 5G. One of the use cases for 5G is fixed wireless, and some operators are planning or even almost there to be competing with the local cable companies and internet providers with fixed wireless technology. Just the case of T-Mobile, that was one of their sales to have the venture with buying Sprint. That was one of the big topics that they were pushing, so they could do the fixed wireless, so they could buy Sprint. So even though the fixed wireless is a small industry, I think we're getting a little bit more notice. And
well, I mean,
hopefully it will grow.
Well, I don't say that as a bad thing. I just say that we have a lot of room for growth. The other thing too is that our initiative is going to help a lot of WISPs to move from residential into enterprise. I think that WISPs want to get more into higher volume business, and enterprise is a very profitable area to get into. And I think that, I think this can be really helpful. I don't know, I think a lot of things about fixed wireless. I think it's the worst name in the world, fixed wireless. I think telco invented it so that we would all go broke.
You don't like it?
It's terrible. I wrote an article about that a few years ago.
Really? Do you have any alternatives?
Anything in the world, Chino. I don't know. I mean, fixed wireless that's not a marketable term. It sounds like a broken thing to start with. What's fixed about? Oh, was it broken before?
I mean, that's right.
It doesn't make any sense. Well, mobile makes sense, but fixed doesn't make any sense. So, I mean, at some point it would be nice. I mean, maybe we should just call it aerial or wireless. I don't know.
Wireless can get, people get confused with mobile. So
right.
I thought about this some years ago too, and I think I came up with a term, but I forgot about it.
Well, I'll have to send you the article I wrote a few years ago. The picture on it had a bottle of soda, and the label said P Cola.
Okay.
And so it was like, and so then that's how I brought out how I don't like the name of fixed wireless. I guess there are worse names that we could have for our solution.
Yeah.
I just can't think of any. But it's, what I think about the technology is that it's about the best technology in the world. We put up microwave links that for 10 or 15 years never dropped any data, never had any problems whatsoever. And I think that we have a story, and we need a bigger place in telecom. The fixed wireless is really kind of shrunk in a way. Our potential has been squashed by the proliferation of fiber. So, I mean, we just need to push back. Fiber wants to be the only hammer in a world full of nails.
Yeah, but we're fighting it. We're giving it a good fight. Fiber has its place, as I will say.
Right.
But, fixed wireless or any name that you would like to put it to, has its place too. Yeah, it's faster to deploy. It's more cost effective. So yeah, we're giving a good fight. I think in the next couple of years we're gonna see an exponential growth in the industry.
I agree with you, but I think part of the way to have a good fight is to take that fight away from, like, take that fight from where we always have it, which is in IT rooms, out to the general public.
I agree.
Because data is almost as important to people as water. So why shouldn't we be talking to the general public about fixed wireless? Why do we only have to talk to IT managers about fixed wireless, right? So when we connect it to fixed wireless and make it more relevant and start to talk about internet vulnerability, I think all of a sudden fixed wireless becomes a superstar.
Let's hope it will. Let's hope.
Well, it will. And, you know, I mean, we had a great conversation before, because, I mean, you know more than me, more than anybody, about what it's like, you know, to be in areas where you're providing, you know, telecom services, going through hurricane after hurricane.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you've seen it all. And I actually, you know, one of the early pieces that I read was a piece that you put out on why power goes out, you know, why fiber goes out, why power, and, you know, why fiber goes out in a storm and it's because of power.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was an excellent piece.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. David, it's been a pleasure to having you here on the vlog. Any last words, any advice for the industry, or any other comments?
Well, my advice is don't be afraid of climate change. It's not about climate change. I'm not going to bother anybody about their carbon footprint. This is about infrastructure and resilience, right?
Yes.
This is about extreme weather. So here, you know, if anybody wants to argue about climate change, I'm not in the argument. But if somebody wants to argue about extreme weather and say we're not having crazier weather patterns, well, you know, that's an unreasonable person. Yeah. So, you know, final comments are that, you know, first, thank you for having me. I appreciate this. I appreciate your support too. You know, I admire everything that you've done. I look forward to seeing what you do in Miami. I look forward to working with you there. And I hope to go on your show again.
Thank you. Thank you very much, David.
By fast.
Yeah. Let's hope that this pandemic ends soon and we can meet each other and meet our clients and the industry as a whole, have the events and everything like that. So hopefully the WISP industry show of the year, which is WISPapalooza, don't get canceled, and we can maybe meet there and meet other people there. So
until then, we have you and people like you. And I think, you know, we just need to be out here as much as possible.
Exactly. Yep. Well, David, thank you very much for your time. I wish you all the luck on your new business. Yep. And for all people that wants to know more about David's and climate resilient internet, here's the information, website, the Twitter handle, and email address. So reach out. And
thank you so much, Gino.
David. Thank you very much, and thank you for connecting with us. See you next Thursday. Yeah, next Thursday. Thank you very much, and have a great evening. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.